On the happiest day of her life, a billionaire bride was seconds away from saying "I do" when she looked outside her wedding hall and saw a frail old woman begging at the gate. What happened next made her freeze in shock, because that poor woman was not a stranger. She was the village teacher who once saved her future.
Mother,
But how
is it
did
really
the woman
you?
who changed her
I can't
life
believe my
end up
eyes.
begging for survival?
my child,
And what the
You are
bride
alive?
did next left the entire wedding guests in tears. A billionaire bride was on her way to the biggest day of her life. The wedding hall was already full. The guests were seated. The cameras were ready. The flowers were perfect. The music had started. Everything was exactly how it was supposed to be. But just outside the gate, a single moment changed everything. Because standing near the entrance, with a small tray of oranges in her hand, was an old woman in faded clothes. Most people ignored her. Some turned their faces away. A few security men were already moving toward her. But the bride looked through the window of her car and suddenly stopped breathing. She knew that face. She had not seen it in years, yet she could never forget it. It was the face of the woman who once believed in her when the whole world had already given up. And what happened next left every guest in shock. Stay with me, and let's step right into this unforgettable story. Dear wonderful viewers, if you enjoy powerful emotional stories like this, please support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. Now, let us begin. The morning sun rose gently over Accra. It was the kind of morning that looked expensive. The roads around cantonments were already busy. Luxury cars moved in and out. Event planners rushed from one side to another. Florists made final adjustments. Security men stood tall at the gates. Inside a grand wedding hall covered in white and gold, everything sparkled. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Tall floral stands lined the aisle. Soft, live music floated through the air. On every table were polished glasses, folded napkins, and name cards for important guests. The wedding was not just a wedding. It was the wedding. People had been talking about it for weeks. The bride was Ama Nyarko, young, brilliant, elegant, and one of the richest self-made women in Ghana. She was the founder of a fast-growing logistics and retail technology company that had expanded across West Africa. Newspapers had written about her. Business channels had interviewed her. Young women admired her. Older people respected her. And on this day, she was marrying Kofi Mensah, the son of a respected family and a successful businessman in his own right. Together, they looked like the perfect match. Inside the bridal convoy, Ama sat in silence. She wore a beautiful beaded gown that looked like it had been made just for royalty. Her makeup was flawless. Her jewelry shone softly. But her face was calm. Too calm. Beside her sat her maid of honor, Adwa, who kept smiling and checking her phone. "You should be smiling more," Adwa said softly. "This is your day." Ama gave a small smile. "I know," she replied. But in truth, Ama had always been like this. Even in happy moments, a part of her stayed still. A part of her remembered where she came from. Because Ama had not been born into luxury. She had not grown up with silver spoons or private security or a driver waiting outside. No. Ama came from a small village near Koforidua. A quiet place. A dusty place. A place where children often walked to school barefoot and where dreams were usually smaller than hunger. Her father had died when she was still very young. Her mother sold tomatoes, pepper, and dried fish in the market. Some days they ate well. Some days they did not. Some days her mother came home with enough money to smile. Other days, she came home with swollen feet and tired eyes. Life was never easy. But Ama was a bright child, very bright. She learned quickly. She listened carefully. And when she spoke with confidence that did not match her age. Her teachers noticed her. But one teacher noticed her more than anyone else. That woman was Madam Efua. Madam Efua taught English and social studies at the village primary school. She was firm but kind, simple but wise. She had no children of her own, yet every child in the village respected her. To some, she was strict. To others, she was difficult. But to Ama, she was safety. There were many days Ama nearly dropped out of school, when her mother could not pay for uniforms, when there were no books, when hunger made the classroom spin, when neighbors told her mother to stop wasting money on a girl. But each time that happened, Madam Efua stepped in quietly. Not loudly, not for attention, just quietly. Sometimes she bought Ama exercise books with her own money. Sometimes she gave her food during break time and acted as if it was left over. Sometimes she kept Ama after class, not to punish her, but to teach her things beyond the lesson. And one day, when Ama was about to be sent home because her fees had not been completed, Madam Efua walked straight to the headmaster's office and settled it herself. Ama never forgot that. Neither did her mother. Years passed. Ama kept rising. She earned a scholarship to a secondary school in Accra. Then another opportunity came. Then university. Then a business idea. Then another. What began as a simple delivery service for small market women slowly became a digital platform connecting traders, drivers, and customers. She worked harder than most people knew. She slept little. She trusted carefully. She failed many times, but she kept going. Investors came. Partnerships came. Expansion came. And before long, the little village girl people once pitied had become one of the most talked about women in business. But success had a way of moving fast. Meetings replaced memories. Flights replaced familiar roads. Luxury replaced struggle. And though Ama never became proud, life pulled her far from the village that had shaped her. The bridal convoy turned into the wedding hall road. Outside, people were already taking videos. Security pushed back curious onlookers. The gate opened. Then, it happened. Ama turned her head casually toward the entrance, and her eyes landed on an elderly woman standing near the side wall. The woman's wrapper was old. Her slippers were nearly worn through. Her headscarf had faded from too many years under the sun. In one hand, she held a shallow tray with a few oranges and groundnuts. In the other, she held herself together. At first, Ama only stared. Then her body went cold. "No," she whispered. Adwoa turned. "What is it?" Ama did not answer. She leaned forward. The woman had bent slightly with age, but the face was still there. The eyes, the shape of the mouth, the way she stood. Ama's heart started beating faster. "Stop the car," she said. The driver looked into the mirror. "Ma'am?" "Stop the car, now." The convoy slowed. Outside, event staff looked confused. One of the security men jogged toward the lead vehicle. Before anyone could understand what was happening, Ama opened the car door. "Ama!" Adwa gasped. "Your dress!" But Ama was already out. Guests near the entrance turned in surprise. Cameras shifted direction. The bride lifted her gown slightly and walked quickly toward the old woman. The security men moved in. "Madam, please, we are taking her away," one said. "Don't touch her," Ama said sharply. They froze. The old woman looked up slowly, confused. Her face was lined with hardship. Her eyes were tired. Ama stopped a few steps in front of her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ama's lips trembled. "Madam Efua," she said softly. The old woman blinked. She peered at the bride's face. At first, she seemed uncertain. Then suddenly her eyes widened. "Ama?" she whispered. That was all it took. Ama dropped all caution. She stepped forward and held the woman tightly. Tightly, like someone afraid a memory might disappear if she let go. The entire gate area went silent. A bride in a wedding gown was hugging a poor old street seller at the entrance of her own wedding. People stared. Phones rose. Even the music from inside seemed far away. Ama pulled back slightly and looked into the woman's face. "What happened to you?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Madam Efua, what happened?" Madam Efua tried to smile, but it did not hold. "It is you," she said, almost like she still could not believe it. "Look at you." Ama shook her head, already in tears. No, don't look at me. Tell me what happened to you." Madam Efua lowered her eyes. "It is a long story, my child." Ama turned at once. "Adwa," she called. Her friend rushed over. "Yes?" "Take Madam Efua inside. Not outside. Inside. Find her a private room. Bring her water, food, and someone to help her freshen up. No one should treat her like a stranger. Do you understand?" "Yes, of course." Ama faced one of the event coordinators. "I want a seat reserved for her at the front. Not at the back. At the front." The coordinator nodded quickly. "Yes, madam." Ama looked back at her teacher. "I need to go in now," she said gently. "They are waiting for me." "But you are not leaving. Please, stay. After the ceremony, I am coming to you first." Madam Efua's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to spoil your day," she said quietly. Ama held both her hands. "You made many of my days possible. You can never spoil mine." Then, with one last look, Ama turned and walked toward the hall. But she was no longer the same woman who had arrived at that gate. Inside the bridal room, the makeup artists rushed to fix what the tears had disturbed. Adwoa returned a few minutes later. "She has eaten a little," she said softly. "We found her a simple dress from one of the backup outfits. She looks more comfortable now." Ama nodded, but her mind was far away. Did she say anything? Only that she did not expect anyone to recognize her. Ama closed her eyes. The ceremony began shortly after. The hall stood as one when the doors opened. Ama entered slowly with her bridesmaids. The live band played. Guests smiled. The groom beamed. The cameras flashed. From a distance, it was a perfect wedding. And in many ways, it was. But deep inside, Ama's heart remained tied to the woman seated quietly in a small room behind the hall. She said her vows. Kofi said his. People clapped when the ring was placed on her finger. The officiating minister prayed. The families celebrated. Everything moved as planned. Yet during the reception, something happened that no one had expected. After the meal, the MC invited the bride to say a few words. Ama stood. The room calmed. She thanked the families. She thanked the guests. She thanked her husband. Then her voice changed. "There is someone here today," she said, "who was never on the original guest list, but who deserves a place at the highest table more than many of us." The hall went still. Ama continued. "When I was a little girl, poor, fatherless, and close to losing my education, one woman stood in the gap for me. She fed me. She defended me. She paid for things she never announced. She gave me dignity before I had success." People listened without moving. Ama turned toward the side entrance. "Please bring Madam Efua." There was a murmur across the room. Then Ajwoa walked in slowly with the elderly woman beside her. Madam Efua had been cleaned up and dressed simply, but her face still carried the weight of what life had done. When guests realized this was the woman from outside the gate, many looked stunned. Ama stepped down from the stage and took her by the hand. Then she led her gently to the center. "This woman," Ama said, "is one of the reasons I am standing here today." The hall erupted into applause. Some guests wiped their eyes. Kofi himself stood and clapped. Ama looked at her teacher and smiled through tears. "You taught me to read with confidence," she said. "You taught me to speak without fear. You taught me that where I came from did not have to decide where I would end." Madam Efua shook her head, overwhelmed. "I only did what any teacher should do," she whispered. Ama lifted the microphone again. "No," she said softly. "Not everyone does." The applause grew louder. That night, after the guests had gone and the hall had emptied, Ama and Kofi sat with Madam Efua in a quiet lounge. Only a few trusted people remained. The heavy celebration was over. Now came the truth. Ama sat close to her. "Please tell me everything," she said. For a while, Madam Efua said nothing. Then slowly, she began. "After you left for secondary school," she said, "I remained in the village. I kept teaching. Life was simple, but it was enough." She folded her hands on her lap. "A few years later, I retired. I thought I had planned well. I had some savings. My husband was already gone by then, but I told myself I would manage." Ama listened carefully. "At first, I sold soap, rice, and provisions from a small kiosk near the roadside. It helped. Not much, but enough to live with peace." Her voice grew lower. "Then the heavy rains came." She paused. "There was flooding. Strong flooding. The water entered my room. It destroyed goods. It damaged my documents. What it did not spoil, thieves later took." Ama's face tightened. "I tried again," Madam Efua continued. "I moved to stay with my nephew in Accra for some time. But when money became tight, respect also became tight." Kofi lowered his eyes. "She made me feel like a burden," the old woman said quietly. "His wife especially. Everything I touched became a complaint. Everything I ate became too much. Everything I said became an offense." Ama reached for her hand. "One day they asked me to leave. They said I should go and find my own life." The room fell silent. "So I began selling small things near busy places.
Some days I sold. Some days I did not. Some days I ate. Some days I only drank water and slept. Her lips trembled. This morning, I came near the wedding hall because rich people usually buy quickly. I did not know you would be here. I did not know. She stopped. Ama could no longer hold back her tears. Kofi handed her a handkerchief. Madam Efua looked ashamed. I did not want you to see me like this. Ama shook her head firmly. No, never say that. There was a long silence. Then Kofi spoke for the first time. Mama, he said respectfully, from today, you are not alone.
Madam Efua looked at him in surprise. He smiled gently. If Ama loves you, then I honor you too. Narrate the following in a dramatic, cinematic storytelling style with a slightly fast pace and minimal pauses. Use only the James voice for the entire narration. The old woman's eyes filled again. Ama took a deep breath. Tonight you will rest, she said. Tomorrow morning, we begin. The next day came quietly. The noise of the wedding had faded. The flowers were being cleared. The luxury had gone. But for Ama, the real work had just begun. She sent her assistant, Senna, to gather every detail about Madam Efua's needs. Where could she stay? What medical care did she need? What had been lost? What could still be rebuilt? By afternoon, reports were already coming in. Madam Efua's health was not terrible, but she was weak. She needed proper food, rest, and treatment. She had no stable home, no pension that could sustain her, no reliable family support. Ama listened to everything in silence. Then she made her decision. A week later, she took Madam Efua on a drive. The old woman sat in the back seat, nervous and confused. Ama, where are we going? She asked. You will see, Ama replied. The car moved through a quiet neighborhood on the edge of the city. Not too crowded, not too far. Safe, clean, peaceful. Eventually, they entered a compound with a small but beautiful bungalow. Cream walls, brown roof, a neat garden in front, a mango tree by the side. The driver parked. Ama got out first, then opened the door for Madam Efua. The old woman stepped out slowly and looked around. It is beautiful, she said. Ama smiled. Yes. They walked to the front door. Ama took a key from her bag and placed it into Madam Efua's hand. The woman stared at it, then at Ama, then back at the key. What is this? Ama's voice was gentle. This is your house. Madam Efua did not move. It cannot be. It is, Ama said. You will live here, peacefully, safely, with dignity. The old woman's knees nearly gave way. Ama quickly held her. No, no, Ama whispered. Please. But tears were already pouring down Madam Efua's face. She wept openly. Not the loud weeping of performance, but the deep, shaking tears of someone whose pain had finally found a place to rest. Inside the house were simple, tasteful furnishings. A clean bed, a comfortable chair, curtains that let in soft light, a kitchen with food already stocked, new clothes folded neatly, even framed flowers on the wall. Madam Efua touched things slowly, as if she feared they might disappear. Ama watched her quietly. This is not charity, she said after a while. This is honor. Madam Efua turned and looked at her. Ama continued. You gave me a future when you had very little. I am only returning a seed you planted long ago. But Ama did not stop there, because she remembered one more thing. Madam Efua had always loved purpose. She was not the kind of woman who wanted to sit idle all day. So 2 weeks later, Ama took her out again. This time, they drove to a newly painted storefront in a lively but decent part of town. A signboard hung above it, Efua Learning Corner and Books. Madam Efua stared at it in confusion. Ama smiled. Inside the shop were school supplies, storybooks, exercise books, pens, children's reading materials, and a small corner with chairs for after-school reading lessons. There was also a small counter for basic provisions to support daily income. Madam Efua covered her mouth. "What is this?" she whispered. Ama handed her another key. "This is yours, too." The old woman looked like she could not breathe. "You once built children with words," Ama said. "You may be retired from formal school, but your wisdom is not finished. This place will allow you to stay active, guide children, and still earn with dignity. And before you worry, your monthly support will continue whether this shop makes profit or not." Madam Efua broke down again. "Ama." Ama embraced her. "You are not forgotten," she said. Word spread quickly. People who had attended the wedding began talking. Not about the gown, not about the food, not about the guest list, but about the bride who stopped at her own gate for an old teacher the world had discarded. A local station shared the story. Then a blog wrote about it. Then people from Ama's village began calling. Some cried. Some praised her. Some felt ashamed that they had let Madam Efua fade away unnoticed. But Ama was not doing it for applause. And that became even clearer 1 month later. Because she returned to the village where it had all begun. The old school building still stood there, tired and cracked by time. Children still sat at broken desks. Some still shared books. The same kind of struggle still lived there. Ama stood in the school compound and looked around quietly. Then she announced that she would renovate the library, repair classrooms, and start a scholarship in Madam Efua's name for girls at risk of dropping out. When the villagers heard it, many wept openly. Madam Efua herself sat in a chair beneath a tree, unable to speak. A woman who had once been pushed to the edge of survival was now watching her name become a bridge for other children. That day, the headmaster called her forward. Not as a beggar, not as a forgotten old woman, but as a mother of futures. And when she stood before those children, the little strength in her body seemed to rise again. She looked at them and smiled. A real smile. The kind that comes from healing. "My children," she said softly, "never believe that kindness is wasted. Even when years pass, even when people forget, even when life turns hard, a seed remains a seed until the right season calls it back to life." No one forgot those words. As time passed, Madam Efua grew stronger. Color returned to her face. Peace returned to her sleep. Purpose returned to her days. Sometimes children gathered in her small learning corner after school, and she read stories to them, just as she once read to Ama. Sometimes Ama visited after work and sat beside her like a daughter returning home. Sometimes Kofi came too, bringing fruits and laughter. And each time Madam Efua looked around her new life, she still seemed amazed that such mercy had found her at the end of a road she thought was already closed. In the end, This story leaves us with a truth many people forget too quickly. Not everyone who helped you will remain visible when you rise. Some of them will grow old in silence. Some will struggle without telling anyone. Some will disappear behind hardship, shame, or loneliness. But that does not erase what they once did for you. Success is beautiful. Weddings are beautiful. Money is powerful. But none of those things become truly meaningful if they cannot recognize sacrifice. The world teaches people to celebrate those at the top. But wisdom teaches us to remember those who held us up on the way there. And sometimes, the greatest blessing in your life is the chance to go back and lift the hands that once lifted you. What do you think about this story? If you were Ama, what would you have done? And do you believe people truly remember those who helped them when they were nobody? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart in any way, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful African stories. Thank you so much for watching.